защитим и наш народ, и нашу государственность от любых угроз, в том числе от внутреннего предательства. А то, с чем мы столкнулись, это именно предательство. Непомерные амбиции и личные интересы привели к измене и своей стране, и своему народу, и тому делу, за которое бок о бок с другими нашими частями и подразделениями сражались и погибали бойцы и командиры группы «Вагнер». Герои, которые освобождали Солидар и Артемовск, города и поселки Донбасса, сражались и отдавали свои жизни за Новороссию, за единство русского мира. Их имя и славу тоже предали те, кто пытается организовать мятеж, толкает страну к анархии и братоубийству. Любая внутренняя смута – смертельная угроза для нашей государственности, для нас, как нации. Это удар по России, по нашему народу. И наши действия по защите Отечества от такой угрозы будут жесткие. Все, кто сознательно встал на путь предательства, кто готовил вооруженный мятеж, встал на путь шантажа и террористических методов, понесут неименуемое наказание. Ответят и перед законом, и перед нашим народом. Как президент России и верховный главнокомандующий, как гражданин России сделаю все, чтобы отстоять страну, защитить конституционный строй, жизни и безопасности, свободу граждан. Тот, кто организовал и готовил военный мятеж, кто поднял оружие на боевых товарищей, предали Россию и ответят за это. А тех, кого пытаются втянуть в это преступление, призываю не совершать роковую и трагическую, неповторимую ошибку. Сделать единственно правильный выбор – прекратить участие в преступных действиях.
Good evening, James. Welcome to another, everyone, also to another Two Guys Talking and going into a deep dives. This time we're going to do an update on the recent flurry of events in Russia and how that ties to Ukraine. So how are you doing, James?
I'm brilliant, thanks, Gene. Yeah, and as I said, I think it's a good idea, yeah, to obviously get that information out, because I think there's been a huge amount of information. It's been incredible the last couple of days, hasn't it, with the amount of information going back and forth. And I think for you to now try and put a bit more clarity on it will be good for obviously our listening audience, won't it? So yeah, let's do it, Gene. Let's have it. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
So where do you stand on it then, Gene? As I say, I mean, from what I've kind of been looking at, a lot of I think some of us, we look at, obviously you have different sources than I do, but obviously some of the sources I've watched obviously on the internet, a lot of them saying that they think part of it's been that they've played them.
Yeah.
They've played the CIA and MI6, and so obviously that's how I'd like to kind of start that off. Is that how you see it, or?
Oh yes, it's quite phenomenally well played 5D chess. It was literally incredibly brilliant. They've been having allowed the CIA through the MI6 to get to Prigozhin, and he followed the rhetoric and did all the talking points, steering towards backing up the West, was saying that he's not getting the ammo. The ammo couldn't be gotten to him because he was not completely having to play it. He wanted to take Bakhmut, or now Artemovsk, as fast as he could. He could have taken it very quickly, but he had met with the head of the conflict there in Ukraine, which is Shoigu. And Sergei Shoigu and Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the essentially the entire Russian apparatus for the military, had agreed that they would turn Bakhmut into a meat grinder for the Ukrainian forces, leave a road open so they could keep sending military hardware and keep personnel in there to Nazify and also to demilitarize the Ukraine. And now they've realized they have to demilitarize NATO, the US, the UK as well. So they're doing that. They did a lot of that with that battle. And then when they felt it was no longer useful, he was allowed to continue. So he, is a very strong personality, a multi-billionaire, and he ran that Wagner group. And so he does care for the people, his people, the Wagner group. So he was saying, he didn't get all the hardware and the ammo he needed to do what he wanted to do. That's true. He wanted to take it quickly, but he understood that, why they're doing it. But at the same time, it allows him to go into that and to show, look at all these dead bodies and all this stuff. He said that. And then also he had said that he was hit from the rear from Russian forces. That was actually not true. That was part of this play. And so we see that Burns, the head of the CIA, also the head of your MI6, and I think his name is Moore. There was a head of the MI6 and special secret organizations that also went.
Yeah, you're right. It's Richard Moore. Yeah,
went to Ukraine also, and then also we had seen that they found $6.2 billion in a accounting error. That's some of the money that they gave to Prigozhin. It was a total of $6.66 billion to do this, to go and turn against and call out Shoigu and Valery Gerasimov and go to that area in Russia, Uskov, and then he put some of his forces down into Ukraine in the Luhansk and Donbass to gather any people that would march on Moscow with him. And so that's figuring out and finding out. They're finding out who would betray the constitutional government of the motherland of Russia. So they ferreted out all of the people within the Ukraine military area of the Russian military that's now that part of the Russian Federation, Luhansk, Donbass, all of that area. And then additionally, in Russia itself, and identified the terror cells. There were 5 terror cells set up by Ukraine in Moscow as well. And 2 days before Prigozhin, they had the comms going back and forth. So they identified those, and the Secret Service of the Russians then got all of those people and taken out. So before he could get there, and anybody within to see who would back Putin, the constitutional government, who would back Prigozhin in doing this. So you have to understand that as he started that march, it's a 10 to 12 hour drive with 7,000 or so men. You're not even the city he first came into to take. He didn't take the whole city. You're talking a large city. I mean, well over 1 million people. He's not going to be able to take that whole thing. He just got a few city buildings of the governmental area. And then he started driving this column. You're talking basically a battalion, around 7,000 men and trucks and armor and all of that stuff, on a 12-hour drive to Moscow with no air support. Oh, yeah, that's going to work. I mean, anybody, the Western media is going to gloat on this. Oh, they're falling apart, da, 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 da. And it draws them when you make your enemy think you're weak. And so this is classic Sun Tzu's Art of War. So yes, we're falling apart. Look, the head of the Wagner group is turning against Putin. He's turning against Shoigu. It's a revolution. It's a civil war. It's none of the above. A civil war requires something like in the U.S., where you have different economies, different allegiances, a lack of coordination between two parts. Russia people are pretty solid with each other, and they love their country. You don't see like you did in with the Bolsheviks, where you have this huge split of a class of people that are very, very unhappy. You don't see that in Russia. And the economy is suffering, and you have an elite class and a really, really underprivileged class. It's massive and very unhappy, that can be gotten through propaganda in various ways to to go against the elite class. So you don't have that right now. Not only that, you're not going to, I mean, you're on the road for 10 to 12 hours. You have the fuel, you pull it to a service station, fill them up. There's a lot of lines of, as far as you can see, right? Oh yeah, that's gonna work. And hamburgers for everybody. That's like, and no air support. And so they played it excellently. And then once he got done, I mean, if that was good, it's the shortest lived coup in the history of the world, under 24 hours. And then he gets to, for the optics, he's exiled to Belarus. Now it makes the head of Belarus look like a hero. He negotiates, so his people love him. The Russian people love him. And it makes Putin incredibly strong now, because now he doesn't have this constant play with Prigozhin, but he respected Prigozhin for all he has done for the Battle of Bakhmut and all that. And then you absorb those in the Wagner group that are loyal to Russia, and they're going, what are we doing? Or I'm not going to do that at all. And to the Russian military for Ukraine and other areas. And at the same time, you get rid of your terror cells in Moscow, and you make a statement, towards how this is looked by the constitutional government of Russia. So if there were anything going on with Shoigu or Gerasimov or any of these people, there was power plays in their mind, they're going to go, the Russian people love Putin. Now they really love him. And then at the same time, he did it very classically, where they broke the ranks coming through a town towards Moscow into a three-pronged attack. So it makes it look to the Ukrainian it's for real. So they had stopped their offensive, waiting for orders to then help and go in with him and help him. Or what do they do? They're not sure what's exactly going on, because he cut off the lines of communication. But all the stuff he's saying when he went into Ruskov and all of this is the talking points from Ukraine, the CIA, the MI6, all of that. So it was a phenomenally well played. Then when he gets done, and Lukashenko and Lavrov work together to get a peace treaty deal with him, to stand down his forces, for him to get essentially he goes to retirement. He was done. I mean, he's had enough after Bakhmut or Artyomovsk. So he gets to go to Belarus, and he's given $1 billion. So, I mean, that's a pretty good day's work. You get $7,660,000,000 in less than 24 hours of work. I
wouldn't mind that myself.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And then he gets to have a nice life, but it looks like he's exiled to everybody else for the optics. And they'll, think again before they try that. Plus, they're out all of that accounting error money. We checked the books and we have an accounting error. We're going to send that to Ukraine. So that actually gets back in the pockets, and he goes to Belarus. It gets back in Russian pockets. Prigozhin's Russian. He goes there, and he continues to coordinate Belarus. Plus, he has all of these comms from MI6 through the CIA. He knows all of these contact points. He's going to dump all that into the SBU, all of the Russian Secret Service, all of that information, his contact points. In other words, he has a lot of dirt on the CIA and the MI6. So
he was one. Did you get the one as well, Jen? I don't know if you had this one there. The other thing as well, when you look at the map of where they were going, and just saying he had that three-pronged attack, and then it was like, what's his name, Lukashenko, whatever, the Belarus prime minister. He then says, offers them exile. So they've now gone there, and apparently they're setting camps up for about 8,000 of them. Yeah, but look where they've positioned themselves now. They come over that border now. They've surrounded parts of Ukraine now where they've been pushing a back button coming around. Now they're in a different part, a different country, but they theoretically could attack from Belarus now.
And somewhere at 8 p.m. of the local time, we received that Wagner's convoys stopped somewhere in 2 kilometers from Moscow. So let's calculate not 2 kilometers but 200 kilometers from Moscow. So this is Moscow, and probably Wagner's stopped somewhere in this area 200 kilometers before Moscow, and they reported that the official sources of Republic of Belarus reported that today there was a call between Lukashenko, the president of Republic of Belarus, and Vladimir Putin, the president of Russian Federation. They discussed the entire situation together about Wagner's, about the entire situation on the combat line, about this military coup, and Lukashenko asked permission asked Putin permission to start negotiation process with Yevgeny Prigozhin, with the head of Wagner's, and the Wagner's reported, and the Belarusian authorities reported that there was a conversation between Yevgeny Prigozhin and the president of Belarus for the whole day, and somewhere at 8 p.m. we got the official message either from the Lukashenko office and the Prigozhin office that they reached some kind of agreement. There was a very difficult negotiation. They reached agreement, and basically Prigozhin received some guarantees and obligations from the president of Belarus about the entire situation, and they have fixed all issues between them. Wagner's have stopped. There is currently, according to the official resources, there is a real agreement between parties, a document on the table to sign, and basically the situation has ended. And now we are going to the most important part of, for example, we see that Ukrainians wasn't prepared and wasn't ready to this entire situation with Wagner. And furthermore, almost more than half a day, the Ukrainians were trying to find a solution, trying to understand what is going on. The Western intelligence also were trying to understand what is going on. And somewhere after afternoon time, the Ukrainians started acting. The first thing we got is the video from the Belarus opposition forces, from Kalinovsky regiment, who is currently on the territory of Ukraine fighting against the Russians and so on. And they published that video where they were saying that Kalinovsky regiment started their own operation against Belarus, against the Belarusian authorities, and they asked people on the territory of Belarus to wait a signal. So basically, no matter the situation with Wagner's and so on, I believe that was a real special operation. Basically, the Russians managed to discover the real plans of the Western countries, at least about Belarus. And that was the video of that. A lot of Belarusian people, a lot of Belarusian opposition forces published a lot of video. They started asking people from Belarus to be prepared. So basically, we've seen the real plan. The real plan of the Western countries about Belarus was discovered as a result of the situation with Prigozhin, Putin, Moscow, and so on. And the most important thing is that basically Wagner forces was located in the vicinity of LPR and DPR, and after the Wagner started their movement against Moscow and against official Russian authorities, as under cover of this special operation, under cover of this strike, the Russians managed to redeploy significant number of forces from DPR to Belgorod region, to the north of Russia during the day. And basically we see the situation when most of Russian forces and Wagner forces currently located in the north of Belgorod, and there is no barriers, no problems for them to start moving during the upcoming night to Belgorod region, and let's say to start offensive operation tomorrow in the morning in the vicinity of Kharkiv. Nobody can not allow them to do this. The Russians, as a result of all events during today, managed to redeploy a significant number of forces to the north. There were a video, of course, about Special Unit Akhmat. Probably the Russians also have some plans for them, and now these forces will be also redeployed to the north. I'll give you my opinion, and during the first video of today, the title was Military Coup or a planned action, and basically now we see that was really planned action. Furthermore, we received update from the Lukashenko office today somewhere at 8 p.m. and the thing is that during the day the Ukrainians launch their greatest counter-offensive operation. At least the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine announced about the beginning of very big offensive operation, about another wave. So basically that special operation also forced the Ukrainians to launch that attack, and also that special operation helped the Russian and Belarusian special forces to discover their planes against the Republic of Belarus. And another interesting update we got today from Kherson region: the Ukrainians reported that they managed to cross Dnipro River. Furthermore, they managed to, according to the official information we have from the Ukrainian sources, and some Russian sources confirm that the Ukrainians managed to build a small bridgehead in the vicinity of Antonov Bridge, and furthermore they managed to redeploy at least 3 tanks on this bridgehead, and currently the Ukrainians continue their offensive operation. So we see that the show has ended. The show has ended. We see that as a result of that show, at least Wagners are saying that nobody from Wagner's were killed. Of course, according to official video, we see that the Russians lost a lot of helicopters, but maybe those were also a part of these games, and maybe that was everything planned and prepared before. Also, we see that during the day, Wagner's managed to redeploy a significant number of forces from south, from Rostov-on-Don area to, let's say, Belgrade area, and currently they're completely ready to launch their offensive operation and to begin the storming of Kharkiv. Furthermore, we saw that Akhmat special unit also in the process of redeployment. Also, we see that the Russians managed to discover the real plans of the Western countries about Minsk and about Belarus. And the only answers we haven't received for the questions, what is going to be next with Sergei Shoigu, the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, and Valery Gerasimov. And some sources are saying that one of the paragraphs of those negotiations and those agreements was to dismiss these 2 guys from their positions. Some sources are saying at least that was some part of those agreements, that Valery Gerasimov and Shoigu currently dismissed from their positions. Wagner and Prigozhin also will be dismissed from position of PMC Wagner, and the Wagner itself will become a part of Ministry of Defense, and finally will sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense. We expect to see this agreement. Today we are not going to cover the situation on the ground. We will do this tomorrow, because for now this is the most important update. And one more time, that was, I don't know what exactly, but if it was a real special operation, believe me, that was one of the most significant special operation made by the Russian special forces.
So now,
It's like he's got a pincher movement on him.
yeah, it's exactly, because part of the deal, and Putin just recently showed this, all of this at the same time. You have the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, the head of the British Secret Service, all of this going to Kiev. And then you have this entourage that goes from Africa to make a peace, to offer another peace deal, that gets held up in Poland and forced to go to Kiev and meet with Zelensky, and then goes to Putin. All of this at exactly the same time. And then he shows the peace deal they already did that was signed by the upper people, the ambassadors and things from Ukraine in Turkey and in Istanbul, where they signed, essentially said, we're always been open to peace and having a peace treaty in Ukraine. It's Ukraine and the Western powers that do not want that. And he showed the signatures, and he said, by the way, the top person, or one of these top people here, it's under investigation, debatably. He got a bullet in the back of the head after he signed this very quickly. And so, of course, Boris flies down there, that gets shelved, and they uphold their part and withdraw from Kiev. And the Western media, the siege of Kiev. What siege? He walked in, took it, and then he left as an agreement. It's like the same thing with Kherson and all that. They go, they took it. No, and now the gray zone. There, we took the city. No, you didn't. The Russians flexed back, surrounded you, and pummeled you from the sides. That's not a win. That's a lose. And then you get destroyed, and they come back in, and then they do it again, and then you follow back in, and you over and over and over. It's the same thing. So this is exactly the same maneuver. They had Prigozhin fall into Russia, circle around, And now all of he and a lot of the Wagner group and a lot of the Russian military is very close to Kiev. They're in the border in Belarus, all of that. He could lead that, or he could have people that are his leadership, his generals that he uses to do all this. He's the one that is the coordinator, but he's not the generals. He has generals under him because the Wagner group is massive. It's nowhere near as massive as the Russian military in entirety. And that's another thing to think about. He's on a 10-hour, 12-hour drive to Moscow, and he's got 7,000 men, or 14, or even if you want to say 40,000. What's the Russian military like in Russia around Moscow? You're talking hundreds of thousands of men with air defense beyond comprehension. I mean, you've got all these attack craft. I mean, beyond helicopters and the jets, you've got high-end stuff. You've got Generation 6 stuff like the TR-3s. They have the same thing. So it gets them to do, like you said, a pincher move. So now, because they didn't uphold the agreement they signed in Turkey, they can go in because they've realized you cannot make a deal with the Western powers at all. So this is a classic art of war move.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And again, as I say, it's been a real player. I mean, I talked about being like a bit of a triple agent, and he has certainly played him, as you say there, and he's now got that information on all these other contacts now, which because I think I'd watched as well or heard as well, someone was saying that part of what they were trying to do then as well was they say that they had them sleeper cells in Moscow. The fact he's taking his troops there then, and the idea was then, as I say, there was meant to be they were meant to follow in, weren't they? As I say, as you just said then, the Ukrainian troops, but obviously there was air support was meant to be coming as well, wasn't it? So they were all kind of gearing up for it, and obviously it's all fallen on its head in 24 hours, as I say. But it's now exposed everyone now, because I think they said that's when it would bring NATO into it as well.
They were seeing if and it's also interesting, like you said, the air support. Just interestingly enough, during the same time, NATO just finished air exercises. It's like the timing is, you can see the Western and NATO and all in the EU moving towards us to get the air support ready to see if they can go in, and if the people in Russia that they were hoping would join Prigozhin and all of that, that there would be that to where they could create that. So, the GRU, which is the Russian Secret Service, the SBU, I got confused there, is the Ukrainian. They're coordinating, these people in the SBU that are connected to the CIA and the MI6 and all this, and it's all going through Prigozhin, but the GRU is monitoring all of this. It's just like classic a triple agent, yay! It's like, oh my goodness. So they allowed him to be flipped, and they had already knew he was going to be flipped. And so he essentially kind of sort of flipped back, so it's like classic operation. And then they have the NATO air exercise all at the same time. I mean, all of this, the coordination is
and the counteroffensive as well, wasn't it, Gene? It was the counter that they were also talking about the the Ukrainian counteroffensive. It's the timing of it's all going there as if so obviously from a Western media point of view. So look at this now, they're pushing back, they've got into Moscow now, and the Ukrainian forces pushing them back like that, as not doing as well that NATO's involved as well, jumping in. It's and as I said, it's turned on its head in such a quick time, which is obviously good to see, good to hear.
Yeah, so it's very coordinated. So I believe it was called Air Defender 2023, the NATO exercise that they just finished, and it was the largest ever. And that the timing of this is phenomenal. That ended on June 12th. From my understanding, it was around 10,000 personnel, 220 aircraft, 25 nations posted in Germany and Central Europe. So it's all that you can see NATO coordinating all of this to see who would fall in with Prigozhin, and all of this coordinated together, plus like what you just said. So it's just the tie-in is so well done that it's pretty obvious. It gets to a point where it's incredibly obvious. And then the Ukraine counteroffensive is not gaining any ground, so they need this narrative. They need something badly. So this allows them talking points for a very long time. So it will de-escalate in some ways. A lot of people are saying it's going to escalate, but the Biden regime and these people are talking nuclear stuff. And so this allows them talking points so they don't have to go to that, or boots on the ground. You know, the same thing with sending F-16s and training F-16 pilots from the Ukrainian military in Poland. And then you're going to launch them from Poland? And they're also doing that, and now they're talking about doing that in Romania, sending F-16s and training them in Romania, and we're launching them from. So you're tempting Russia to do this response. They've said that anything that's going into Ukraine is a target. So if you're helping the Ukrainian military, it's a NATO war, obviously. So they're trying to escalate. NATO and the US and the UK are trying to escalate this. So what this allows is it actually allows things to de-escalate, because they're going to have this talking point. Russia's falling apart. See, oh my goodness, Putin is losing it. They almost had a civil war. Just one more try, we can get this done, you know. But they had everything situated. They had the Ukrainian forces stand down from their counteroffensive, and then immediately when this flopped, they go back full out on their counteroffensive. They're attacking into trying to attack into Bakhmut, trying to attack into I can't say the Ukrainian names, Pidininsky or something. It's a terribly hard name to pronounce. But they do these attacks, and the Russians flex back into these gray zone little towns of 5 or 6 houses, move, and they're in valleys. So they go do this under the cover of night and terrible conditions in the weather, rain and fog, go up on the mountainsides, or through, in one of them, it was this, that Petrinsky or whatever it was, as this long line of very circuitous foxholes and trenches. And the Russians retreat through this. It's just a maze. And the Ukrainians follow them, and then they use the bad weather conditions to go up on the hillsides, and have the Ukrainians all in these very long circuitous trenches. They come in there with massive air attack with these flamethrower missiles and all of this stuff, and just in 2 hours obliterated over 1,000 men, and tens of tanks are destroyed. All of this, and it's an incredible disaster. It's, you know, we need Trump to get back, because like he said, it's easy to make peace there in a day. Stop sending them stuff and stop giving them billions of dollars, and just say you're done. Go to the peace table. What they have, they keep. And that way they don't march on Kiev, and what you have, you keep. And it remains absolutely neutral. It's put in the Constitution. NATO, as they had promised with the fall of the Berlin Wall, goes not an inch further. And they actually honor that this time, but it's all in the Constitution for Ukraine. You put that all in, and, you know, Zelensky will probably be taken care of by his own generals. You won't have to worry about him, but he is a useful idiot in the meantime. But now what they're losing in Ukraine is not the Azov forces of the neo-Nazis. You're actually seeing men that were conscripted, and women, off the streets, grabbed off the streets, trained for 5-6 weeks. If they're in combined combat modes, 3 months, that's nothing. Not in this kind of war. You have no ability, and you're driving Challengers, you're driving Abrams, you're driving, I mean, how many different, you know, Leopards, how many different kinds of vehicles, and they don't have the support and the training and all of this. It's just destroying good people who will never go home to their families again, and their friends and all of their loved ones. So it's destroying, like they have said, as long as it takes, to the last Ukrainian, to the last pound, the last dollar, the last tank, the last missile, the last round of ammunition the West has and the Ukraine has. So they've done that for Ukraine. It's pretty much done. Next, that's why they're threatening boots on the ground for NATO, because they're running out of Ukrainians. They have conscripted the majority, and it's tragic and horrible what they're doing, because you're having Russian people conscripted off the street, essentially. They're essentially the same stock, Slavic people. So destroying each other. So very good points, James.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And I think that's what they're doing. They're willing to sacrifice. And it's the people who are willing to do it. And as I say, a lot of it is CIA, MI6, not their men. They're willing to sacrifice the Ukrainian people. And, it's not that, for their own, it's obviously to probably hide what they've been doing, isn't it? You see, and it's awful to see and hear. And I think I heard the other day he was saying that, the amount of people that's left was that I can't remember. Did he say there was 35? I don't know. It was 10 million have left. I think he was one of them was saying have left, and obviously the amount that has been killed in battle.
Yeah, depends if you're looking at the Ukrainian or Russian reports, but in this counteroffensive, it's already at least 10,000. I would say closing in on a fourth of what of the 40. That's a fourth of the 40,000. They've actually inscripted about 60,000 total. So maybe some of them aren't fully trained in there yet, but I think it's towards 14,000 they've lost. Closing in on 300 tanks, depending, what you call a tank, but, Challengers, Abrahams, Leopards, Tigers from World War II. I mean, that's why I got confused, because there are Tigers there. Tiger 1s, Tiger 2s, Panther 1s, Panther 2. I mean, like Trudeau, Alex's imitation, and cheetah tanks too. It's like, and of course, Israeli tanks are already there. All of the, and like the Russians say, they all burn, and weapons the Russians are throwing, they don't just burn, they blow into pieces that are incredibly, amazingly airborne. I've seen those tanks, they get them into these minefields with the minesweepers, and then they hit the minesweeper or the front tank, and the other tanks stupidly fall out from around it into the minefields. Back up. Don't keep going. It's like, and then they blow them up, and then they come in with the air, craft, and blow the bejeebers. And I've seen pieces going hundreds of yards. There was one, a turret literally looked like it went like half a mile away and half a mile high. It turned into a frisbee. I'm like, holy moly, what kind of ammunition are they using? Incredibly. And of course, the US has sent depleted uranium like UK did. And of course, they know where that's warehoused. They'll hit that like they did in for the UK stuff in Khmelnytskyi, where they hit that, and then that contaminates some of the ground with the alpha, and you have the temporary situation with the gamma that in that case seems to have gone to parts of Romania, as far as parts of Romania and those areas, but that's all gone now. But then you have that very fertile land that was just downwind of that, that's you either strip off the ground, but you've gone in, the ground layer for about the first 10 feet, or you have to deal with the situation in the water table. Of course, the Alliance has the technology to neutralize that, because now that, and this is all fantastically, interestingly tied to Dr. Stephen Greer coming out.
Now, the history of this is important, because if you look at the testimony we have already, it's something like 70 to 80 people that we have debriefed, videotaped, have their transcripts, and it's available to the media and the public through our website and our YouTube channel. We've very transparently put out everything we can. To an extent, a not-for-profit entity can do it with volunteers and no office and no staff. So I don't want people to not get too grand here. This has been a volunteer effort for 33 years, and those people are heroes, as are these men up on the stage with me today. Now, and just a quick trip through some of the previous witnesses. We had Sergeant Clifford Stone. He was on an NBC team nuclear, biological, chemical back in the 60s, was actively involved in retrieving extraterrestrial vehicle and bodies, what have you. They were called EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities. We have his testimony. It's there for anyone to see. We have people like John Callahan, who is the top accident investigator at the FAA when the Japan Airlines event happened in the 1980s during the Reagan years, and they tried to cover it up. He took the original FAA tracking tapes. The Disclosure Project have the originals, and you're welcome to see them. Those of you in the media, we can try to get those to you. So all of these sort of testimonies and witnesses have come forward already. But now we're at the stage where there's real utility, because the official law now is that the government has mandated the Pentagon, the intelligence community, to research this and report back to Congress. Now, there's a problem we'll get into in a moment with that whole process, which is important that you understand, and particularly the media understand. But first, I want to tell you what we've handed off this week to the Congress and to the White House and to the Pentagon Aero office, the AARO office that's tasked with investigating this. So we can go to the list of the material in the archive. It has government documents in the tens of thousands from all those countries: United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and others. We have 145 top secret facilities, some of which are black sites, that are named and on a map, and you'll see them in a moment. The supporting documentation of it are in the archive, meaning the witnesses' testimony, who they were, when they were there, where the locations is, sometimes up to where the gate is. And that's been handed over to the United States government this week. There are 752 and counting whistleblowers who've come forward over the years. Some of them are now deceased. But what's important, even the ones who are deceased, if you go to their history and their command and what they provided, there is an investigative thread to follow back in. Very important. There are also files with all these witness testimonies that have been provided up to date. In the archive are 121. We learned of another one last night from a very high-level whistleblower who is not ready to come forward. So there's actually 122 crash retrieval cases of these UAPs. And those are documented. Michael Schratt, who is an aerospace historian and is working full-time with us beginning in November, had worked for Lockheed, but not the Skunk Works, on conventional operations. And he is doing those investigations for us, and also the beautiful illustrations of what these witnesses have had to share, and you will see those. Then we also have the documents that includes names of witnesses. In other words, government documents that are not declassified that we have. Now, we'll get into this in a minute. And there are many so-called deep throats who provide intel on the background, who are working with us, some of whom are very senior in these operations. Others are people who have just incidentally been involved.
He's demanding, along with a massive group of insiders, whistleblowers. And Hillary had gone to Belarus, and this is all tied to Burisma Holdings, Belarus, the Hunter Biden laptop, the Biden family, the Biden crime family, 10% for the big guy, the kickbacks, all of this, the $5 million that he and the big guy got. Everything's tied together to the non-terrestrial fake invasion they're getting ready to do, and they are still trying to move towards that. It's the perfect talking point and perfect way to get people into a 15-minute city CBDC social credit score system. You don't have to say you're a white Aryan racist or a white racist or a LGBTQ, whatever, you're against that or this. Just say, oh, you're siding with the aliens. We put you in a camp. So they have this all planned, and they have the ships. They have the back engineered, alien craft since Roswell and many, many others that they've taken down and back engineered, along with cloning bodies of them, so they could have not just blue beam, but real on the ground boots as I say, in this case, I don't know if you'd say boots, depending on the creature you clone,
Yeah,
but
could be many boots. Yeah.
appendages on the ground, alien invasion. And so that would get a one world government and all of that. So they're trying to do all of this by Stephen Greer, and all that's tied to Bakhmut, tied to the tunnel systems, tied to the bio facilities, the 30 plus in Ukraine. All of that is all tied kit and caboodle together. And he gave him 6 to 9 months to come out. He's been presenting this to Congress and other people for a very, very long time. Now he's got all these whistleblowers, a list of facilities all over the world. Many of them are DUMBs that I put out, and I'm working on a new update on that, starting with the US and all the maglevs and tunnel systems. It's so incredibly massive. It's more massive than the 247 I had gone into before, my second decode. So this all ties together. The timing of all of this is pivotal, because they were trying, if they can overthrow Russia, they've pretty much already done the US. I mean, we have anybody who really thinks Biden won, or is the president, or could be the president of a kindergarten, is delusional, like he is. He's definitely not running anything. He's just, the people really running it are the, Newland, Blinken, and these idiots, useful idiots, they're the ones that are running him. And of course, they're being run from above and on and on and on, as it always goes. So this whole thing is to actually give the West talking points, at the same time as ferret out all of the people that would be against motherland Russia, both in Ukraine and the Russian military, the terrorist cells of the SBU in Moscow, so the GRU can get rid of them, plus the people in Russia that would turn against the constitutional government and Putin. It makes Putin incredibly strong. It makes the Russian people incredibly proud of him. And it gets them, allows Prigozhin to retire. He's had enough. He retires with a lot of money in a very short time. I mean, he was a billionaire, but now he just picked up another 7.66. I'm like, yeah, that's a deal. So it's just
that should keep him going for a while, yeah.
Amazing thing.
It is, yeah. It is. Again, so you're saying that tying in with Stephen Greer. I seen something the other day as well about the Jim Caviezel, as he is an actor. He was talking about the biolabs. Did you see that about the biolabs, and saying how much these crates? He's saying like a barrel of oil is £7,000. Sorry, $1,700, but a barrel of adrenochrome and body parts is $77,000 US, and that's where they were using they were going straight to the biolabs in Ukraine.
Yep. Not only that, that's also all tied to the alien situation and Blue Beam that Stephen Greer, and also it's tied to alien technologies that have been hidden and literally buried at the bottom of the sea. It's all tied. Look at the timing of this. This submarine that's going down on the Titanic that has Stockton Rush, Hamish Harding, Shazida and Sukuman Dawood, and Paul Harvey Nargalet. I can't pronounce that. Those guys are tied to the situation with all of these things like Palestine and Ohio, that train crash, and then the nitric materials coming from California that wound up getting blown up, and some of it went missing, and all this. That's the alliance taking them out. Also, it's saying you can't just go down there with any submarine, any company, but that allows the alliance to go down there, because now they don't have all this interference, and get that top secret, more than top secret, very high-end alien tech that went down on the Titanic, and they know precisely where to go to get it. But in all of that fury with all of this, it's a diversionary tactic. So they can go down and get that while all of this is going on. They're over here doing this. Don't look at my right hand here, I'll hit you with my left. So same thing we see with Prigozhin, same thing we see with, the both sides are doing it, where, we have an accounting error. We found 6.2 billion, and he's astoundingly gets billions. So, and at the same time, astoundingly, we have the alien tech, and we have the blue beam thing, and we have Stephen Greer, and all at the same time. That's a lot of coincidences. I call that coincidence off the chart. It's incredibly obvious what we're involved in. The adrenochrome, the chromochrome, the labs, the trafficking, the blue beam. Of course, you got to create them in labs too. So those labs aren't just doing one thing. They use things for everything all at once. And both sides are playing it. But the alliance, wow, that was impressive.
I've seen something before as well. Chat saying apparently Netflix already. I think it's on Netflix already. I've come out with a film or a documentary about a submarine that goes down for the Titanic already. Already. It's like you couldn't write it. They've already. It was on one of our channels there. They've already put something out about what's going there. They're like, you know, and someone said you couldn't write this. It's just obviously they knew it was going to happen. And I think someone did that say on there as well? One of the guys that was on it, wasn't he related or something to do with the actual people who had been on the Titanic or something? I can't remember. Is that right?
Yes, related. And also, you know, these billionaires are also part of all this. Their cabal. It was the alliance taking that out. And then, you know, because they're tied to the, you know, the false flag kind of situations that are going on in the US. Of course, you know, we keep sending billions to Ukraine, but we don't have money for the people in Ohio that were damaged by that train wreck, or the stuff with the semi trucks and all of that blew up in California, or on and on and on. So this is how the cabal is playing it, and the alliance is playing them and getting rid of these bad actors. So they're letting them play their hands so that they can be played out. The same thing with the pandemic. It all ties together, and they know they can't play that card again because they got forced to play it too soon. And a lot of it was saline solution, and they didn't get it to everybody that they wanted, but they got enough out there. And then that ties these two men, also the four men on the Titanic sub. Obviously, you don't put a movie out that fast, the Netflix series. That actually ties to the Falkland Islands and that war, which was two islands, separate groups. They broke into two groups. Most people don't know that. And they went to a southern group that's closer to Antarctica, where they found they knew, and they recovered black goo that they brought back to the labs in the UK for the MI6 to analyze that black goo. That's where we get the stuff for the pandemic, the graphenes, and all of these non-terrestrial sources for hybriding humans into homoborgenesis to create super soldiers that they were testing where Ukraine. Do you see the tie-ins? That's okay. Yeah. So, and of course, they also found some of that black goo outside of DIA and shut down and tore up Pena Boulevard. Also, they were in a lab using it there. And so two men gave their lives in that lab to blow that up with a small tactical nuke, and they had to come clean that up. The Gulf oil spill was black goo again. And that's all of this meteorite activity that came from the home worlds of these negative groups. They're participatory in that. You know, Stephen Greer cannot put out he's got to say there are only good groups, because if you put out to the masses right now that, of course, like all groupings of everything in the universe, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. The majority of them are incredibly good. You don't come trillions of light years over here, or billions of light years, or even millions of light years with technologies that are so vast that they could wipe out the Earth in an hour. All life on it if they wanted, or stop all technology, or like the whistleblowers in the same group like Greer's in Russia, they have a general, and he said that they had a missile that was spinning up and was going into launch mode, and they couldn't shut it down. It would have been World War III. It was going to launch itself, and an alien craft came into the hangar, into the silo, and shut it down. And he said it's not just shut the engines down. They shut it down nuclearly speaking, too. It was no longer nuclear. It was no longer able to be a nuclear weapon. they turned it into, like they usually do, gold. So, yeah, you love gold. Here you go.
Yeah, yeah. Because let the people buy it then. Yeah.
Mhm. So, it's all tied together to watch how all of these wars, the Falklands, the stuff going in, and oh, yeah, speaking of Antarctica and these 4 men on the submarine, amazingly, a couple of them have gone around Antarctica and flown over Antarctica. And that not just anybody is flying over and going around Antarctica. They're all deep into the cabal, they're deep members, high level members, and all of this stuff that are being removed. So we all know about, and I was working last night on the New Schwaberland Base 211, British invasion of Base 211 after World War II. So I'll be trying to get that out, as well as that dumb Decode in this next month or so. So it's amazing now how we're seeing all of these narratives coming and tying together at the same time. Go ahead, James.
And I was going to say, do you think now as well, because weather's changing now in Ukraine as well, do you think we're at that, we've reached the peak now? It's going to be do you think that's going to be a quick process now of taking Ukraine out?
I'll think,
you're saying a lot of the lands now have been frozen over or swamp-like, but now they're going to be drying out, and so they're ready to do the final moves.
I think Russia's time is on their side.
Continue
to allow the US, the UK, and NATO and the EU to throw everything they have into Ukraine for the Ukrainian, and then a lot of Polish troops now, majority is actually the radio chatters Polish. There's some Romanian and other French and Foreign Legion types and all of those now in there, to continue to throw that out there. But as far as Ukrainians, the conscripted type, they're not proving as valuable. I mean, if you forcibly remove somebody from their family on the street and force them to go, they've had now, I know it's over 2 battalions that completely just surrendered to the Russians. We don't want to do this. We don't want to fight you. A lot of them are related. I mean, it's somebody said,
Russian people, a lot of them, aren't these?
Yeah. So, I mean, they are being taken to Russia along with all their brand new Tigers, relatively brand new Tigers, brand new Leopards, refurbished Tigers from World War II, and Leopard tanks, their brand new Leopards and their Abrams and their Challengers and all that other stuff. And the Russians can, parade it through Moscow, make Putin a hero. All of Shoigu, Poroshenko, all of these people, not Poroshenko, excuse me, Prigozhin. And in the meantime, they, all of this stuff keeps pouring in, and they see where all the comms are connected, and they take out the big, huge headquarters. So, essentially, definitely, he died in a German hospital from that bunker hit on May 9th, is Budanov. He is definitely dead. And the video he made is obviously, very obviously not him. He did not have a badly broken nose, a nose that's been hit with a powerful left hook, where the nose has been badly to the left. And then the 2 pictures, one closer up with the same background, you can tell it's the same area. Looks like a cardboard cutout, very poorly done Photoshop. I'm like, you can see the outline around the body where it was pasted in. Bright white light around his body. He glows and nobody else does. So is he enlightening? He's ascending? No, he's gone. He died. He never came out of a coma. Then Zaluzhny too. Valery Zaluzhny, the head of the Ukrainian military, and they show him now, an actor playing him. Those people, along with 98 other high-level Ukrainians, were taken out in that bunker, military and SBU, etc. And 200, including Lord Maitreya, of the leadership of the cabal were in there, generals, US, UK, EU, NATO, etc. So they're demilitarizing and denazifying the world. They're just, time is on their side to go slow and take out the bunkers now, take out That was the first one, May 9th. Another, they've taken 2 more out since then, as well as all this weaponry. And when the US now says, or the UK now says, we're sending this, you're sending the contract to the manufacturers. That's what you're sending. You're not sending the weapons. Those are going to take you 2 years to build. And while you're doing that, Russia by herself will build those all in 1 month. What you're going to build in the next 2 years, they'll build in 1 month and have it in Ukraine. But it's like, yeah, it's like Obama himself said, you cannot out militarize, outproduce, I'm paraphrasing it. In other words, you can't outdo Russia's military might. She has 5 plants, 3 shifts going 24 hours a day. And they don't have the situation where you have this contract bidding, where in the US, like when I was in submarines, one of them we couldn't go to sea because one of the coolant systems has an impeller fan blade that we had used the last one. So we can't go to sea without that coolant for the reactor, that system. But at the same time, it takes a time to get that in. So we're delayed on getting underway. And the captain was pretty upset. And so one of the nuclear powered people went out in town and found the exact same impeller. And I mean exact, the same company, the same serial numbers on the metal stamp, on the inside, everything for $6. One in the military was 60 grand because it's tested for nuclear and submarine and it's got all this paperwork. They test one in a lot. And so every single one in that lot is 60 grand each. But they just tested one. They don't test them all because it's destructive testing that they do to them. So all of those others are exactly the same thing you get for $6 at Ace Hardware. It's like 4th of July. Do you really think a toilet seat costs $6,000? So that's for all these black ops and all of this stuff. So the Western, when you see Northrop Grumman and these drones, and the missiles, the Patriot systems, millions of dollars a shot, or $60,000, and the Russians' drones are what, 600, 6,000? I mean, why? Why the huge discrepancy? Because a lot of that's going into these black projects. Additionally, you have a lot of people getting grease palms all along the way. You don't have that in Russia, so they're throwing this very inexpensive hardware into these trenches and burning, these flame throwing things, burning all of these tanks out, burning these people that are scripted, burning the mercenaries from all over. I think time is absolutely on their side. Just let the West collapse itself. Watch their economies collapse. There was a hilarious video that I played it yesterday on my interview with the Truth Tour in San Diego, but it was the sanctions video. I'll give it to D and he can put it in here. The sanctions video. I sent it to everybody in the team, but
no, that's bull. That's nonsense. We need some fresh ideas. Better, stronger, and effective. Oh, God, I'm so tired.
Party International.
Try to figure out what sanctions to do next. And finally, you see Van der Leyen throwing darts at a map, and one goes down low. It hits Antarctica. Okay, no more internet for the penguins. All the penguins are going, what the heck? What did we do? So they're just, and she has this chart. She's writing, things to sanction: Russian dolls, Russian wolfhounds, Russian salad dressing. It's like, it's
Oh
hilarious.
yeah, you have to get Dee to put that on. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I mean, to me, as I say, what you're saying there does make sense as well, doesn't it? I mean, because I think slowly. I mean, they could have gone in and just obliterated the place in a week. But what they've been doing is systematically stripping them and letting them, all these other countries or all these other, like the CIA, what they do in America now, they're just weakening them, aren't they? Just keep sending your stuff, keep sending it, keep sending the troops. We're just going to mash them all up. We're going to take all your money until in the end. Because I think I read the other day as well, they're saying that they've sent that much stuff America that they couldn't even defend themselves now.
Yeah. UK.
Because they put everything into it, and it seems like that's what they're all doing. They're all throwing it into Ukraine there, and just they're willing to obviously sacrifice the Ukrainian people. But it's clearing obviously the bad as well, and getting rid of all that. So it's just a bit like what's happened to Bakhmut. They're becoming a bit of a meat grinder, isn't it? It's horrible to say, but it's getting rid of the evil. And in the meantime, I say there's more disclosures coming out. So I think you've said before, a lot of it's not about the timing of it, it's more about actual events, isn't it? And certain things have to happen. So if it takes another year or whatever, then that's what's going to have to happen. But they've got to get to a certain point where these it's weakened, and they've expanded all their options. I mean, the CIA, for example, they must have other options. What they're going to be, I don't know, but it sounds to me they're getting extremely desperate now, because everything they seem to do, we seem to have the answer for them.
Yeah, and it's also showing the Western world what their leaders are about. They're counting error of 6.2 billion, that's going to Ukraine. What about the economy of the US? What about the people? What about the children? What about the schools that don't have the funding? What about retirement? What about all of that? And same in the UK. You're sending all this hardware and all this money to Ukraine, but your economy, inflation is off the chart. What about that? What about in Germany? They are saying that Ukraine actually did the pipeline, that they're the ones that organized it, Budnov and all of these people, and conveniently he's no longer around. The same thing with Zelensky. He's the mastermind. He's the guy that, was in charge of the whole thing. And it's very convenient. And in the meantime, it's outing all of the people, like Olaf Scholz is sending, and all of the people in Germany that are supposed to be economic advisors and all that you're advising to send more to Ukraine. What about our economy? All of our total infrastructure is going outside the country. All our manufacturing is going outside our country. We're losing our jobs. We have no more jobs. We have no more income. We have no more fuel. We have what comes this winter. We barely made it through the last winter, and that was a mild one. What happens if even a mild one for next winter, when fuel is beyond what you have to you choose between heating your home and cooking your meal? You eat it raw, and you heat it only at certain times, and you close off rooms. And in the meantime, they're looking at these leaders like, how are they living? Are they taking cold baths and drinking, cold liquids in the middle of the winter, and living in cold homes and eating cold food and not having money to drive or take a lorry to the store? You can't do anything. So they're looking at, it's outing, just like the pandemic did. It's outing the truth about who runs your country, how they run their country. Do they run it for their people? Obviously not.
Yeah,
run it for
you're quite right. It is. It's for themselves, and obviously you're seeing all it is showing the corruption of all of them all over the place, and the double standards and what they do. And so people, it's like you said there, like the pandemic now. If they try to put, I know that there's you still hear the odd time they're going to try and do another one, but I think so many more people have kind of woke up to that. It's like, no, you're not going to play us with that again. You know what I mean? So they know what they've done. They know there's been corrupt contracts. And again, with the Ukraine thing, it's one where that, you know, we haven't got any money for doing this. So for example, the UK nurses wanted a small pay rise. We haven't got any money for you. It'll ruin us. And all of a sudden they're sending billions upon billions. They'll go and fight Ukraine and sacrifice and throw money there, but they can't find it for the people in their own country. You're quite right. We've got, I think the last count we had about 500 hotels full of refugees, all in hotels, not in what's the name there, in hotels. Can't get into some of the hotels in the UK because they're just, there's a company called Serco, which I think Prince William is one of the major shareholders of. It's which are running the contracts there, where they've taken over the hotels for like refugees, all male refugees, by the way, supposedly. It's I'm still haven't found out what that's about either, Gene. Obviously, it's certainly not whether it's for good or for bad.
Sound like a good idea. Let's put it that way.
No, I mean it's obviously it's not by accident. It's, you know, they've been brought here for a reason. Now, is it the white hat? Is it the black hat? I don't know. It's certain, but I know the people aren't happy about it in regards to the here.
Think about it logically, you're looking at either a labor force, a military force, replacing, you know, a voting block, of course, but also you're looking at a large military possibility or a large working force. Again, that are going to work for very little. So
yeah, that's they exactly. There's only two to me that's what it is. Yeah, you know, well, it's, you know, is it a military? But then if it's a military, are they, what side are they on? Are they going to stand in front of, you know, my own feeling is that it's for more nefarious reasons, and it's going to be that they're going to be,
yeah, because
they're going to be fighting against us.
We know a lot of the military hardware that was supposed to go to Ukraine is showing up all over the world. I've seen pictures of the cartels in Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah,
with Stinger missiles that were supposed to be in Ukraine.
Yeah, and again, it's that again. I mean, what you're saying there before, that is the case now, isn't it? Again, I think it's the same old saying from the Q side of things. There, you have to show the people. And so we can see now that actually, hang on, wasn't the money meant to be going there? Wasn't that infrastructure meant to be going? Wasn't them planes and armory meant to be going there? And all of a sudden, why is it there? Shown, and who's selling it? It's showing the corruption of us and certain people within the military who are doing it.
Yeah,
and it's highlighting them, and obviously that's the way it has to be done. So again, hopefully, in the meantime, they're getting picked off, and it's like, right, and we're taking them out slowly but surely.
Now it's showing the royal families completely embedded in this.
Yes.
This country, you're seeing the eternal government, that never leaves, the senators and the congressmen that are there for life. And who is who? Who are the rhinos? Who are the Dems that are, just deep state Dems and deep state rhino Dem, not really patriots to the Constitution. And we see the end runs they're doing around our Constitution, where they're persecuting Trump for having stuff he's allowed to have. Well, Biden has all this stuff, and they don't go after him, and he gets away with tax fraud, and his son gets away with tax fraud and illegal weapons and all of this. But the slightest thing, if that were Trump, they'd have been all over him. So
he'd be in prison, yeah. He'd be in prison. I mean, I think I see it again. Something they said, they keep showing pictures of, and it's when they talk about Trump and saying the documents, these are documents that he had, and they show like boxes and boxes and boxes. And this guy said, "Let me just 102 pages they took. Let's just get that right. 102 pages." And he shows a pack of what's there. He said, "There's 500 pieces of paper in this, like you'd get your normal pack of paper, for putting in your printer." And he said, "That's 500 pages, 102 pages they took." But they try and make it out. So they show like a big load of like boxes, massive, like about 200 boxes, as if they've took all that from Trump, as if he's had all that. But yeah, it's with Hunter Biden, you said there, it's completely different rules. And it's so obvious. I mean, what corruption? and yet they still keep hiding it and hiding it and hiding it. And you know, from I obviously from England and coming over there looking over for America, but I can see that the tide is changing. They might show that narrative and they might keep showing the narrative, but the people aren't that stupid. They know they're being played. They know they're being lied to. They know there's corruption.
Yeah.
And
it becomes obvious with the pandemic, flatten the curve. This will stop it. That'll do this. They're seeing the same narrative being used for the economy, for the Ukraine, for everything, for the Green New Deal, the sustainables, flatten the curve of energy use. Do this, do this. They're seeing that the narrative is the same narrative used over and over, no matter the situation, whatever it is. They use the same talking points, the same narrative, the same useful idiots. It's the same game. And then when those people, it's just their progeny that go on, and we're just being played and over, and people are starting to wake up to it, and they're seeing it's not equal. Where, if that were Trump, he'd be, he's arrested, he's paraded in front. All of this happens. You see that with Hunter now, slap on the wrist. Okay, that's it. So, and all of this, it's not equal. The law is not equal. The people are waking up to it, and you got to show them, and they're being shown the system they're in is not what they thought. And so it's going to wake up the masses to where they will not eventually, you got to get them to the point where they will not allow it to happen again. Once it's cleaned up, they won't allow it to go there again, because they see that when they hear those talking points coming out, and they have these really nice little sustainable, it's not sustainable. 17 basic rare earth elements and a few other things that are found rare all over in a very few countries on Earth. And you dig them up, create those materials, they go in landfills, they're done, and they're dispersed all over the earth then in these landfills, and you don't have that. And in the meantime, you have these free energy sources, like Stephen Greer saying, that all of that never had to happen in the first place. You do have sustainable green energy, free energy. So that should come out right away. And so the people are seeing all of this playing out at the same time, and it's making people realize you're seeing a stark contrast between what you've been told is the truth and what is the truth. And you have to show this stark contrast. So, it's the same thing as get people to think. The same thing with Prigozhin. Does it really seem possible for him and a few thousand men to go all the way to Moscow from Ukraine and not have the entire Russian military coming down and Air Force and all of that on top of him? And they didn't. They let him continue to roll.
Exactly. I mean, that one, that there's a picture there, or I don't know, there's a small video, and it's just, as I say, I don't know how many trucks there are, but they just go on this massive road, and it's like, yeah, okay. You've got no air support, and it would just be, I don't know, you talk about Israel with the 6-day war, it'd be a 6-hour war there, because it would probably 60-minute war, because they could take them out. They could take them out just like that, couldn't they? So, but it just made me. I thought it was quite amusing as well as the fact of how the media would, when they were talking about Wagner, where they were evil, they were horrible, and what they were doing, they were killing Ukraine, and all of a sudden, these are fantastic people. Because all of a sudden they're off now to Moscow to take over Putin. And these are fantastic people, as if we've got them all wrong, and let's get behind them. It's like, wow, how quick did that change? I mean, killing the Ukrainians and all that, the most evil force that they've seen, and then all of a sudden that they're like saints going on marching on a crusade to take out Putin.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. I saw it. It's like, the Wagner group was the worst evil on earth, and now they're the patriots and they're heroes and all of this. Oh, they're going to go take Moscow. Oh, they're the hero, yeah. And now they're they're going to sanction the Wagner group. Oh, now we can't sanction because we'll look like we're backing it or something. If we sanction, it looks like we're backing Putin because we're going to sanction these heroes. It's like, that's hilarious. It was actually in the Wall Street Journal. They're looking at can't sanction Wagner because it would be backing Putin overnight. It swings around. They're the worst people. No, they're the heroes of the West. It's like, and the masses are going, now you're switched 180 degrees. Of course, then and some people, it's like Alex goes with Baerbock in Germany, 360-degree Baerbock. We're changing things completely around 360 degrees. By the way, dear, 360 degrees, you're still going the same place you were. You did a full circle. You didn't like go the opposite way. That's 180. If you're on a road and you do a 360-degree turn, you're headed in the same original direction. 180 is the other way. So it's not a 180. So that's literally what we're seeing. We're seeing them do 360s where they do a 180 and then later on they do a 180 right back to where you were. Another 180. Okay, we're going the other way. So it's like their narrative changes, and the people, the same thing, with the pandemic and the jab and all of that. And yet when I got it, I was over it with something that's, Jim Humble stuff in 2 hours. So all of that jab and all of that is that people are thinking, what about these alternatives that they won't allow you to get, and why? But yet, what do they push? When you get cancer and you go get chemo and radiation, what does that do? And how healthy is that for you? But in the meantime, if you got it early and you started using these alternative things, that would never occur. And by the way, how come you're getting it? So if you look at things like Brown's gas and you look at these alternatives and you look at, like in Russia, it's a terror. You're a terrorist to use GMO. If you will grow fully organic, you're going to. They'll actually give you the land for free. It's terrorism to use GMO, and it's in their governmental laws that it's terrorism to use GMO and to grow GMO. So what does that do to you when you eat that stuff that your body has no idea what it is? The world is waking up to the truth. And what does all of these things tie together? So you're looking at all of this hypocrisy of the deep state coming out, and they're going, I was like watching a video of a guy in China, and they make it convenient. So he's going into the store and he has a smart shopping cart and he scans the stuff as it goes in, and he just walks out with the cart to his car. It's already billed him, everything. Yeah, you've given up. It tells you where it is in the store. You have your shopping list. It's already in there. You scan your phone in of all the stuff you entered into your phone, and it tells you where in the store to go to get it, and you get it. And if you get the wrong thing, it tells you. I mean, you don't have to think. It's eradicating thinking, common sense, and it's tracking every single thing you do. So that's exactly the same narrative we see playing out here, where it's George Orwell's 1984. The peace fund for the EU is being used to develop weapons and to go to Ukraine for war. So the Wagner Group's good, the Wagner Group's bad, they're the evil, they're the best. It's like you talk out of every side of your mouth at once. It's like it's becoming incredibly obvious what's going on in this world, and that people are waking up. So as these technologies and the truth is realized by the people of the world, it's becoming obvious.
I think the obviously the Stephen Gray thing with these technologies as well. I mean, I think that needs to get out a bit more, doesn't it? Because again, I think it's how many people are listening to that. Because again, it's a lot of that's suppressed, isn't it? It's not getting out, so it's up to us to kind of get that information out as well, isn't it?
Yeah, his 3-hour presentation was phenomenal. He does know the deep state, and there are negative groups. He does know. If you listen through to the Q&A at the end about how much of the constitutional government is left, he says a semblance. And so, and he's gone to generals, he's gone to like Inuit and Hawaii and talked, and they have how Inuit told them they have their own navy, their own army, their own military. And you went to an admiral and a general, and they, the head of the DIA, for example, and he's saying, what he doesn't have the read-in, and generals and admirals, what would I unleash against them? B2s? They have stuff 1,000 years ahead of that. Well, it's showing the truth of what's going on. It's all of this technology these elites are access to, and we're flying around with aluminum fans and driving aluminum, fiberglass freaking pathetic things. I mean, obviously the narrative is coming out of the truth. And so the people need to, get behind Greer and get behind the Brunson brothers and all of these things and write their congressmen and senators and get them to do the right thing and vote the ones out. Look at what they vote for and what they stand behind, and get the ones out that are obviously deep state. And, realize what you're looking at. If you're seeing 7,000 troops driving on a highway to Moscow with no air cover, it's not a revolution, people. It's not a coup. It's a play. You're being played. The U.S. is in the U.K. and all of these mainstream media is for them. Their propaganda arm, their Mockingbird media, are all like excited. Shows you they're idiots. Because you're excited for what? That's not going to happen. And in the meantime, they think it's going to be like the Maidan coup. You're not in Ukraine. You're not in a little tiny country that you've been in there with all your, back dealings and all that other stuff. You didn't learn from Napoleon. You didn't learn from Hitler. Russia's not a good idea to go against. You did it once and they learned. You did it with the Bolsheviks. They learned. They got rid of you. What was the first thing they kicked out? The bankers. And now you sanction them to where all of that's out. Yahoo! All their oligarchs are investing in their country. So this is the last clean out. This with Prigozhin, this move, I see this as if not the last, the biggest one, other than getting the bankers and what the sanctions did, is get all their monies coming back into their countries. So all these big companies removed, and the oligarchs develop companies in their own country. So they're investing locally instead of globally. And so it's the model to show, how to do this in all the countries of the world, is to get the oligarchs in your countries to invest in your country. And they can make far more. The products are better. The companies grow faster. The money's backed by gold. You can see how a true economy now works. And you trade with other countries, and the African countries see it too. We'll trade with you. We're not going to come into your country and do a color revolution or tell you how to run your government or tell you how to run your economy or what to do or what to believe or how many sexes there are. You can do whatever you want. If you want our advice or you want our help, let us know. We'll do that. But we're not going to come in and do all this stuff. We're here to trade with you and do business with you. And so it's a new model. It's a multipolar model where individual countries use their individual economies and they get it backed by gold because they see the value of that, or backed by real assets, gold, silver, platinum, etc. And in the meantime, we're watching it all crumble and fall away. Those that are in the old WEF kind of Nazi kind of baloney garbage pack of lies stuff.
No, I think you're right to say, but again, it's without putting timescales on it. Just think we're going to get to the stage where we'll be waiting till 2024 before we see major things, as in bringing
Trump back in. 2024 is not that far off. We're half.
No, it's not. You think about it. It's just 18 months, aren't we? 18 months.
Yeah, we're essentially about halfway through. So we're halfway, through this year to 2024. I don't think that's that far away. And 6 months, that Greer said 6 to 9 months, we're in the beginning of 2024, end of 2023, in the beginning of 2024. So, it's actually happening very, very fast. So I think we're seeing a wrap up of everything here. If the people will wake up, time to wakey, time to wake up, and see the truth, see the mud that's been thrown in your eyes, and clear off your windows, and clean it up and clean up the mess, and figure out the truth, and stop denying it, and stop talking points. Stop believing stuff just because a whole bunch of videos are out there saying that's true, or a whole bunch of mainstream media, or 2,000 experts say this. Who are the experts? Who backed them? Who elected them to be the officials that we're going to believe their narrative? Go do your own research. Go out in the world, go around the world, go travel the world, go see the world, go out in the ocean, see how it looks out there, see the shape of the world, figure it out for yourself, see what makes sense to you. All of these things. Same thing with fossil fuel. Is it rock? Is it ground up rocks? Fossils are rocks. It's not what it is. It's hydrocarbons. How does it come into being? Research it. Learn what gasification is. Is it renewable? Can you burn it all up? You can distribute 17 rare elements so thinly across the earth you can't really use them anymore. So is that renewable? Is it green? Is carbon dioxide bad? What do plants breathe? What happens when they do breathe it? Do they grow bigger? Would they have more? It's like you. With less oxygen, do you feel better or do you feel worse? And so what do plants give? More oxygen. Do you feel good when there's not much plants, or do you feel bad? So use your own common sense, start figuring things out, learn the cycle of life, learn, the physics and all of these things, and it will become evident to the world. So yeah, thank you, James. This is really great. Appreciate all of this.
No, that's great. And obviously I'm conscious now, Gene, of obviously that you've obviously got another, as you're in your very, very busy life, you've got another appointment in about 15 minutes. So obviously I think we this flash update, obviously we veered off a little bit near the end, but again, it is all tied into it. But we've managed to get the information out.
Yep, and it's great to have you in UK to give your point of view on the royal family and how we see all of that tied to this and what's actually going on in the UK, because they're a big part of the Five Eyes. So thank you, James, for your time and jumping on here and doing this very quickly, and thank you for being so pivotal to doing all of this and everything, and big hugs and love and blessings.
Appreciate it. No, it's a pleasure to be part of the family, Gene. So it's no problem at all. I'm glad I could do a little bit to participate in what we're all trying to achieve. So that's great. And I give you've got about 10 minutes now, Gene, before you have a quick drink before you go on to the next one.
Yep, on to Patriot Underground. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Two old guys talking to each other. James G, thank you for joining us. God bless. Godspeed. Have a great good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on your dimension, density, level, and location. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you, James. God bless.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.